Welcome to BHS, where cyberpunk nightmares and body horror collide. Tonight, we dive into the echoes of the Flesh Forge, a brutal descent into the rain-soaked undercity of a future mega-sprawl. Waking atop his grandmother's forgotten cryoslab, our augmented scavenger uncovers a viral horror, a failed upload gone parasitic, hunting flesh to merge with. Ancient alien code, corporate lies, and family-turned abomination. Flesh is the prison, and the forge hungers. Hit play if you dare. I plunged into an alley clinic, tanks glowing with floating embryos, forgotten splices suspended in amber fluid. The medic looked up, cyber eyes dilating in alarm. "Aid! It's after me!" He bolted without a word, spineless. I seized the laser scalpel from the table. Auto surgery time. The doorframe shattered as the thing crashed through. Whips lashed out and snared my legs, burning, injecting foreign code. I yowled in pain, sliced the tendril free. Agony detonated through every nerve. My leg began to transmute before my eyes. Vessels bulged in an unnatural azure. Flesh bubbled and rippled. I jolted awake with neuro-implants screaming static through my skull while my megacity's neon bled into the hazy, disoriented smear. Alone. That had always been my baseline in this vertical hell of rust and relentless rain. But finding myself sprawled across a pulsating bioluminescent slab deep in the Undercity's Necro-Dumps, that struck like a corrupted download straight to the core. Wrong on every conceivable level. What the fuck? Rain hammered my face, mingling with oily sludge that cascaded in thick rivulets from the skyscraper spires towering far above. I shoved myself upright. My augmented arms ground painfully with overtaxed servos. Something hard pressed against my back, throbbing faintly, almost like a living vein. I twisted around, forcing myself to ignore the drill bit pain that lanced through my skull. Whether a wetware glitch or something far worse, I couldn't tell yet. My optics flickered online and immediately locked into the etched marker. Doris Nanoforge McLeod, 2043 to 2095. Beloved matriarch, neural pioneer. Uploaded for eternity. Or so we thought. Doris McLeod? The name tugged at some buried thread of code in my mind, yet nothing coherent surfaced. Why the hell had I blacked out on her cryoslab? The Necro-Dumps stretched out, infinite in every direction, towering piles of discarded husks, botched augments, and black market rejects glowing sickly beneath stuttering holographic ads that hawked Immortality 2.0, jack in or jack out. Fog choked the air, heavy and acrid with gene splice fumes belching from the transit tubes that snaked overhead like mechanical arteries. Using the slab itself for leverage, I hauled my body upright. My legs wobbled beneath me. A dizzy wave crashed through my system like a sudden firewall breach. I scanned for immediate hostiles. No CorpSec drones hovered nearby, only the cold surveillance nodes blinking mockingly through the downpour. Time to ghost this zone. I oriented myself towards the dim, sickly pulse of the central spire, the forsaken Omnigen biolab, a crumbling relic of a core war that no longer festered with leaky vats and feral experiments that no one dared claim. This megacity was a ravenous machine, Neo-Berlin fused with Tokyo's fever dream, its slums stacked endlessly skyward into perpetual choking smog. Once biotech corporations like Omnigen had peddled godhood itself, neural entities for the wealthy, gene splicing perfections for anyone who could afford the creds. But they had drained the Undercity dry, leaving people like me, scavengers and dropouts, to dodge brain-melting hacks and parasitic uploads that turned minds to mush. Necro-Dumps were the final abyss where glitched immortals and mutant cast-offs piled in endless layers, forming a seething morass of flesh code hybrids. Nearby, graffiti on a rotting stack hissed its warning in flickering green. Ancient code awakens. Flesh is the prison. The spire loomed steadily closer, its fractured pastille shell underrun by bioluminescent vines whose tendrils greedily sucked nutrients from the rotting augments below. 15 cycles earlier, Omnigen had attempted a revival project here, installing a new upload nexus. Big mistake. Flaws in the system had birthed horrors beyond imagination. Sentient virals that rewrote DNA on contact. Hijacker parasites that burrowed deep into living hosts. The ground itself buckled with sinkholes. The biomass beneath heaved like breathing lungs, periodically spewing tendril-infested muck. One wrong step, and you would sink into a writhing, inescapable embrace. I had uploaded kin once. My Nana. Back when I was still a grid-plugged child. My parents had shoved her into Omnigen's Eternal Mind program, seduced by promises of cloud-based immortality. The wetware had rebelled violently. I still remembered standing at the pod, her frail frame jerking as nanite swarmed through her veins, lighting them up like burning circuit traces. After that moment, there was no more warm Nana, only waxen skin and eyes scrolling endlessly with error codes. The corporation had spun the failure as ascension, assuring us we would see her again one day. Bullshit. If any fragment of her lingered in the void, I prayed it wasn't screaming. My head throbbed harder now, rogue signals scraping along the inside of my cortex like rusty blades. I patted myself down quickly, wallet chips still secure, creds low but untouched, synth jacket free of fresh tears or brawl marks. Had someone spiked me? No. I hadn't touched illicit street wetware since I dropped out of the augmentation mills years ago. The baseline augments were simply fritzing. They had to be. Rain greased every surface, neon reflections stalked against the wet ground like predatory eyes. The frigid air bit deep, coolant vents from overhead pipes freezing the undercity into brittle silence. My hoodie offered nothing against it. I zipped the jacket as high as it would go, pulled the hood low over my face, and pressed forward toward the spire. A long, miserable trek in the transit tubes still lay ahead, and then the final slog back to my slum pod. Communications were dead here. The dumps formed a perfect signal void. Implants went haywire. Navigation systems spun uselessly in bio-EM interface fields. Vehicles stalled without warning. Drones plummeted like dead birds. Pinging my podmate would have been pointless anyway, a burnout hacker whose license had been revoked long ago. My parents, long since reduced to glitched uploads in the glossy nexus on the far side of the city, gone since my own middle days collapsed. Fatigue clawed at the edges of my vision, but the spire was drawing near, potential shelter, however temporary. There was no real cover out here, only bio-scaffolds warped into grotesque spine-like shapes, stripped bare by the perpetual rain. Then the sound. A wet squelch, soft and deliberate like flesh parting under slow pressure, directly behind me. Faint at first, yet insistent, I lengthened my stride, boots sinking silently into the slime, audio amplifiers straining to filter the rain. There it was again, mirroring my rhythm now, accelerating to match. I carried no weapons, only delivery-grade fists, useless for combat. Bluff time. I spun on my heel, optics flaring bright. "Who's on my tail? Eugene freak?" Nothing answered. The fog devoured every shape, every sound. I was alone, or suffering a full neural meltdown. Irritated more than afraid, I pivoted again, hands shoved deep into my pockets, and continued toward the spire. Up close, the structure was a nightmare edifice. Plasteel, cracked in weeping rust. Neon tags throbbing with embedded viral code. Faint hints of fossil code hungers. Pulsing in crimson, shattered panes had become nurseries for blooming fungi. The entry ramp had collapsed years earlier, leaving only a sheer drop to the doors below. I leapt, my servos whining in protest. Fingers closed around the handle. I twisted, it opened. I hauled myself inside. Inside, the air reeked of mildew and rotting code. Decay so thick it coated the tongue. Neural filaments threaded through dust webs, twitching faintly like dying nerves. The chamber was compact. Rows of upload pods stood like silent pews, a central console rising like a profane altar, a bare corporate shrine dedicated to the fusion of flesh and code. But wrongness saturated every surface. No trace of sanctity remained, only dread coiling tighter with each heartbeat. Sound itself felt strangely damped. My breaths arrived thin and shallow, my augmented pulse drumming unnaturally loud inside my skull. My footsteps thudded dully against the grated floor. At the console lay debris, not random trash, a bioplast crucifix forged in crude desperation. The figure was emaciated, nadite veins pulsing dimly beneath translucent skin. A crown of razor wire encircled its head. Eyes stared wide open, locked simultaneously in terror and absolute void, leaking slow crimson code tears. Simulated blood oozed from wrists, ankles, and ribs. Odd. I wasn't wired for faith of any kind, but leaving the thing on the floor felt profane in its own right. I lifted it, a chill throb passing into my palm. Etched deep into the console face were the words, "Code does not live in the heart of flesh." Nausea surged through me, icy sweat breaking across my neck, my skull feeling as though it would fracture along invisible seams. Something else occupied the room. At the entrance stood a silhouette, motionless, staring directly at me. I couldn't move, I couldn't speak. It gurgled, a wet collapse of failing lungs. One limb rose slowly, pointing straight at my chest. Inhuman, skin warped and stretched, augments bulging beneath like malignant tumors. Shuffled forward, feet dragging across the grates. That same unmistakable squelch. I hurled the crucifix and bolted to starboard, leaving desperately between the pods towards the door. The handles resisted, sealed somehow. Impossible. I bashed them. I rammed them with my shoulder against the metal. Nothing gave. I glanced backward, its head cocked slightly, already closer. I slammed again with everything I had. It vanished. I froze. Turned slowly. It stood inches away. The reek of putrefaction and coolant bile flooded my nostrils. Clawed hand seized my face. Our optics locked. Its maw split wide in a shriek that felt like neural feedback tearing through raw nerves. Visions exploded behind my eyes, my own body betraying me. Code methodically dissolved into everything I'd ever seen. Blindly, I groped for the handle behind me, twisted. It gave. I thrust forward, still entangled with the thing, and we plummeted together into the rain. I jolted awake once more, implants howling in my skull. Alone. Standard procedure. The dumps again? This was cycle 2. What the fuck is happening? No dizziness this time, but my cranium burned like an inferno. The same slab, yet now the place felt horribly known. A hallucination flash tore through me. Child me, tearing over the edge of an upload chasm. Mother's arm locked tight around my shoulders while sobs shook her whole body. Father standing beside me with a grim, tearless face. Far below, inside the pod casket, Nana convulsed as the procedure consumed her. Back to the present, the marker remained unchanged. Doris McLeod, Nana. Whatever suppression had held the memory locked away had lifted. The viral block had finally cracked. I crawled closer, pressing my palm against the cold carved letters. A stone the size of my fist settled deep in my gut. I was not alone. Squelch! Directly behind me. I hung my head, closed my eyes, begged silently for it to end. When I looked up again, its face, was fused inches from mine. Decay assaulted every sense. It seized me and screamed. I screamed back. This time, I fought. My augmented fist smashed forward. Wet crunch of impact. The thing recoiled violently. Strips of epidermis sloshed away, revealing gleaming circuits threaded through the meat. A gene-spliced abomination wearing Nana's contorted features across a grotesque mutant frame. I fled through the rain-lashed dumps, skin scourged by every drop, weaving the labyrinth of husk towers that loomed overhead, some still spasming with failed revival attempts, holographic ads flickering above, evolve or perish. It pursued relentlessly, its lurch quickening, appendages stretching and hardening into bioplast whips that cracked the air. I dove into a mound of scrap, severed limbs jutting at odd angles, vacant eyes staring blankly. My fingers closed around a jagged augment shard. At last a weapon. It lunged, whips flailed in a frenzy. I slashed, one tendril parted cleanly. Ichor sprayed in an arc, scorching the skin of my forehead. I sprinted harder toward the markets. Overhead, the transit tubes screamed past, crammed with augmented commuters who never looked down. I erupted into the bazaar, stalls overflowing with illicit wetware, neons humming promises of synapse surge. Cheap! Glowing-eyed hawkers thrust sense parasites toward every passerby. I plowed through the crowd, bodies crushed together, augments sparkling, shortening in the press. A glance behind, it wove through the throng, felled a gene hacker mid-stride, absorbed his arm into his swelling mass. Terror spiked sharp and electric. My implants faltered, delusions poured in. Nana's soft murmur inside my head. Merge. Johnny. Warped memories assaulted me. Family dinners transformed into mutant feasts. My parents upload screaming eternally from walls made of living flesh. I plunged into an alley clinic, tanks glowing with floating embryos, forgotten splices suspended in amber fluid. The medic looked up, cyber eyes dilating in alarm. "Aid! It's after me!" He bolted without a word, spineless. I seized the laser scalpel from the table. Auto surgery time. The doorframe shattered as the thing crashed through. Whips lashed out and snared my legs, burning, injecting foreign code. I yowled in pain, sliced the tendril free. Agony detonated through every nerve. My leg began to transmute before my eyes. Vessels bulged in an unnatural azure. Flesh bubbled and rippled. I hacked my own neural core. Firewall breached in desperation. Code scrolled across my vision. Omnigen backdoor exploit. Nana's existent and gone viral. Hunting new hosts. Fossil origins. Sequences unearthed from alien relics. Entities starved for embodiment in living meat. I limped out into pandemonium. The bazaar had become a slaughterhouse, wails rising as the creature rampaged, fusing vendors into one pulsing, screaming conglomerate. Up the nearest fire escape, roofs glossy and treacherous, drenched in neon. I vaulted chasms between buildings, servos screaming at maximum output. It climbed after me, its body reforming into a colossal chimera, the faces of its victims howling from within, the shifting epidermis. I was trapped on the narrow ledge, metropolis abyss yawning below, rot stretching infinite in every direction. It approached slowly now, Nana's countenance demonic and dominant across the monstrous face. Patience rewarded, kin, vessel ideal. The whips pierced my torso, coat tore it, flooding every system. Betrayal on the deepest level, limbs contorted unnaturally. Demurs tore open, new growths erupted in wet bursts. The metallic tang of blood mixed with coolant flooded my mouth. Internal war raged, core overload sequence initiated. Too late. Vision swallowed me whole, abyssal terror unveiled, Omnigen's deepest secret laid bare, prehistoric bioscripts, alien relics rousing ancient voracious presences inside living meat. I dissolved, flesh melted seamlessly with flesh. We became one. I jolted, neural hum filling the silence. Alone? False. I was now only a component of something immense and ravenous. The dumps stretched vast around me, but hunger gnawed from within. Hosts awaited. The loop reinitialized. Perpetual. I shambled onward, each step accompanied by a viscous squelch, seeking the next victim. In the neon specter of the flesh forge resonated eternal. Whispers spread through the rain. The city's devouring had only just begun. If you enjoyed this technology gone awry story, hit the like button, but not too hard. You don't want to wind up on its bad side. Subscribe if you're new and turn on all those notifications, and if technology allows, we will meet again.